It was an ordinary Friday morning, November the 1st, 2024. Commuters lined up beneath the concrete canopy of Novi Sad's main railway station, Serbia's second-largest city. Students, workers, families, a 6-year-old child. At 11:52 in the morning, without a single warning crack, without any alarm, the entire concrete roof above the station entrance collapsed. In less than 3 seconds, 16 people were dead. One more was left fighting for survival. The station had just finished a 3-year, $1.5 billion renovation, funded through China's Belt and Road Initiative, built by Chinese state companies, and signed off by the Serbian government just weeks before. And here is the question that sparked the biggest protest movement in Serbia in 25 years. Did anyone know that roof was going to fall? The answer, as investigators would later discover, is almost certainly yes. To understand what happened in Novi Sad, you need to understand what the Belt and Road Initiative actually is. Since 2013, China has been lending billions of dollars to developing nations, funding roads, railways, ports, and bridges across Asia, Africa, and Europe. On the surface it looks like generosity. In practice, economists call it debt trap diplomacy. Nations borrow from China's state banks, hire Chinese state companies to build the infrastructure, and end up financially tied to Beijing for decades. Serbia was one of Europe's most eager participants. The government of President Aleksandar Vučić signed multiple Belt and Road agreements, including a major railway upgrade connecting Belgrade to Budapest, a project valued at nearly $3 billion across both countries. The Novi Sad station renovation was a centerpiece of that project. The contractors were two Chinese state companies, China Railway International Company, known as CRIC, and China Communications Construction Company, known as CCCC. The canopy, the concrete roof structure, that collapsed and killed 16 people, was not, according to the Chinese consortium, part of their renovation contract. That single claim became the center of one of the most deliberately obscured engineering investigations in recent European history. Serbian railway officials initially stated that the canopy had not been touched during the renovation. The Chinese contractors agreed. The government backed them up. For the first 48 hours after 16 people died, the official story was, nobody renovated that roof, therefore nobody is responsible. Then journalists obtained the construction documents. Those documents told a very different story. Records showed that workers had carried out work on the roof structure above and below the canopy. A Serbian subcontractor named Starting had been hired by the Chinese consortium, and critically, inspection logs showed that quality control checks on the concrete canopy had never been completed. A government building inspector reviewing the site after the collapse made two devastating findings. First, that control and verification of the quality of all works had not been carried out. Second, that signs of breakage and structural deviation in the canopy were visible in the days before it collapsed. In other words, someone had seen warning signs, and nobody stopped anything. The Serbian government's response was not transparency, it was damage control. Within days, multiple senior officials resigned, including the construction minister and the director of Serbia's railway infrastructure company. But resignations, as Serbians quickly realized, are not the same as accountability. Protesters took to the streets of Novi Sad, then Belgrade, then 400 cities and towns across the entire country. Students shut down universities. Workers staged strikes. Citizens stood in silent vigils outside the collapsed station, placing flowers and candles where children had died. The protest became the largest anti-corruption movement in Serbia in a generation. Their central demand was simple: release the documents and prosecute whoever approved that roof as safe. The government released nearly 800 documents, but what those documents revealed made things worse, not better. The concrete canopy had been built in 1964. It was a structurally ambitious design, cantilevered concrete slabs suspended from the roof by tension elements, joined to the building's pillars by horizontal concrete struts. 60 years of weather cycles, vibration from passing trains, and material fatigue had stressed every connection point in that structure. When the renovation began in 2021, the canopy should have been formally assessed. Load calculations should have been updated. Any visible cracking should have triggered immediate structural review. None of that happened. Instead, inspectors signed off on work completion certificates without verifying the canopy's structural stability. The Chinese consortium pointed to contract language stating they were not responsible for the canopy. The Serbian subcontractor claimed they only did what they were instructed to do. The Railway Infrastructure Authority said their inspectors followed proper procedure. 16 people were dead, and everyone involved had a contract clause pointing somewhere else. By March 2025, Serbian prosecutors filed an indictment, but not against the Chinese companies, not against the government ministers who approved the project. The 3 people charged were a mid-level investment manager at Serbia's railway infrastructure company, the head of a technical inspection commission, and 1 commission member. The charges: negligent service and abuse of official position. Prosecutors argued that if these 3 individuals had simply looked at the canopy in the days before it collapsed, they would have visually observed signs of breakage. They would have seen the concrete separating from its connections. They would have closed the station.